Elo and Varg stepped through the rippling membrane of a chrono fracture and arrived in the honey-sharp air of Florence, 1504. The seam sealed at her back, leaving only a faint smell of ozone that the local breeze quickly dispersed. Around her, stone masons shouted across scaffolds, and somewhere in the distance, hammers beat bronze into future masterpieces. None of the artisans knew that the city had just been punctured by an opening barely a pin-prick wide in history's skin. Fewer still would ever learn that this breach had been opened not by poets or scholars, but by a syndicate of souvenir hunters in search of small, priceless things. Alawan brushed dust from her sable uniform jacket. Its shoulders bore the silver sigil of the Chrono Ecological Rangers, an Ouroboros wrapped around an hourglass. She adjusted the glass helm that refracted local light into the heads-up display, nestled over her cornea. A translucent map flickered, blue for stable chronology, red for contaminated zones, purple for active smugglers, and pulsed ominously at the Palazzo Vecchio, 2 streets away. Ranger Varg, telemetry confirms local distortion at 73%, her comms officer murmured through the sub-audible implant in her ear. Retrieve the lost object before we push into Cascade. How long before Paradox Threshold? Elowen whispered, so the locals would merely think she was muttering Latin. 46 minutes. Plenty, she told herself, though she remembered when they'd measured response time in hours, even days. Timeline pollution had grown thick as burnt oil since commercial time travel opened 3 years ago. Official tours were regulated, no physical interaction beyond observation, no removal of artifacts, and strict personal decontamination before return. But legal tours were dull. The black market crowd wanted relics, the last leaf that grew on the Hittite Empire's cedar, Caligula's missing ring, half-burnt papyrus from the Library of Alexandria. Each lifted trinket might weigh only a few grams, but their absence rippled outward, widening fractures, rewriting births, erasing languages. Elowen ran a finger along her belt, where a thin coil of anachronic cable weighted with a grappling hook that could anchor to any material state, from marble to mist. She turned a corner and spotted the rendezvous point, a tavern with an unfinished fresco on its facade. According to Ranger Intel, a trio of collectors would emerge here, bearing an unassuming block of white marble, the flawed original David arm, discarded by Michelangelo hours earlier and left for garbage. Remove it, and the artist's memory of the imperfection would vanish. The final statue would differ, and one of humanity's anchor points, an artistic constant around which billions of decisions radiated, would tilt. The red in her retinal display deepened. Inside, the tavern's hearth glowed. Tallow candles smoked on rough tables. 2 tourists leaned against the bar, wearing tunics that hung too neat, their shoes too discreetly modern. Time travelers always mistaken something: a seam, materials, posture learned from holodramas rather than real living. The taller one, the manifest, held a burlap sack under his arm. Elowen sat across the room, ordered watered wine in passable Tuscan, and angled her helm to record faces for the tribunal. She had no backup. The other rangers in this century were patching a critical breach in Ming China, but she possessed sanction to use extreme force, suppressed memory pellets, localized chronostasis grenades, tactical evaporation if needed. History's integrity weighed more than any single life. She flicked a micro-drone the size of a gnat. It darted across the air, landed on the tourist's sack, and projected a density scan back to her lens. Carrara marble, 9.8 kilos. Target confirmed. She rose. A drop of sweat tracked down her neck. Human proof that even rangers feared failure. Just then, The tavern door burst inward. A second group entered. 2 men and a woman, faces half covered by breathing cloths, tinted chrono black. Rival collectors. The first smugglers stiffened. One reached inside his cloak, likely for a displacement pistol that could freeze matter in a microloop. If they started firing, stray loops might latch onto citizens and chain fragment entire threads of Renaissance commerce. Elowen's window shrank. "Intercede," Command whispered. She moved. A twist of the anachronic cable wrapped the marble sack, yanked it across the room into her waiting arms. Stunned faces pivoted, thieves against an unexpected third player. She triggered her badge, projecting an iris of shimmering authority. "Chrono Ecological Ranger. This object is under temporal quarantine. Stand down or face erasure." The taller manifest snarled, "You don't scare me, Ranger. This timeline is days from collapsing anyway." He swept his pistol. Blue-white filaments spat, shearing 2 tables, turning oak into static sculpture. Patrons screamed. The locals perceived sorcery. A friar crossed himself. Elowen dove, rolling behind a wine cask. The second group opened fire at the first, hunter versus poachers, their weapons hissing loops that crackled against each other, fusing into sizzling knots of arrested seconds. If the loops intersected, they could fuse epochs, a stable line's nightmare. Elowen tapped her gauntlet. A chrono pulse erupted, a silent concussion that stilled every unshielded object for exactly 6 subjective seconds. Smugglers froze mid-snarl, mid-shot, mid-deflect. Wine hung suspended like rubies in invisible glass. She sprinted through the tableau, seized each pistol, and slapped stasis cuffs on wrists. The pulse lapse ended. Time crashed forward, spilled wine splattered, patrons bolted, and the smugglers found themselves bound. Elowen shoved the marble into a phase-locked crate. "Congratulations," she told them. "You just lost your deposit on existence." The rival trio's leader laughed, even as the cuffs burned ice around his pulse. "You think it's only us? You're fighting a tide with a teaspoon. Open tours changed everything. Every century, some idiot steps on a butterfly, and you're patching forever. Why not profit before it all folds?" Typical nihilist philosophy, she thought. Break the world and sell the fragments. But then a new alarm shrilled across her display. Purple this time. Source. The same fracture she'd entered through. Someone was forcing it wider. "Command, breach escalation," she reported, yanking the smugglers to their feet. Multiple unauthorized transfers inbound. Extraction window narrowed. Fracture showing runaway resonance. "We're moving the anchor. You have 11 minutes to exit, or you'll be stranded in collapse." Elowen dragged her prisoners into an alley. She thumbed a recall beacon. Blue arcs stitched the air, generating a portal. Once a gentle ripple, now a storm-edged maw. On the far side, she glimpsed Chrono Ranger HQ's brass platforms, guardians training cross-centuries, where banners of epochs hung side by side. Wind howled. Debris from Florence rumbled towards the opening. Plaster dust, parchment scraps, a startled pigeon. She threw the prisoners through first. They'd land in a null cell, and followed. The moment her boots struck HQ metal, alarms changed pitch. Viewports showed the fracture coruscating, branching like lightning. Instead of sealing, it spawned micro-rentals across the timeline board. London, 1666. Babylon, 537 BCE. Chicago, 1871. All fire years, she noted grimly. Events poised on flame. Easy to mask theft beneath catastrophe. Chief Ranger Udo met her at the docking ring, face carved by sleepless weeks. "It's systemic. Someone's sabotaging anchor algorithms. You up for one more jump?" "Pack me a fresh stasis kit," she answered. "Where to?" "Chicago. Great Fire kicks off in 41 minutes. We have intelligence that collectors plan to extract Mrs. O'Leary's lantern. Elowen frowned. A single lantern? Udo spat into a reclamation grate. The lantern rumored to start the fire. Remove it. The ignition may fizzle. No fire. No impetus for building fire codes nationwide. Ripple into structural engineering. Entire skylines shift. They're going for keystones now. She shuddered. They want to rewrite the modern world. Or ransom it back. Udo handed her an upgrade. A Chrono lock rifle, capable of freezing an item's local duration indefinitely. Your lead, plus 2 partners. Elowen turned as the partners approached. Ranger Hale, a quantum linguist fluent in dialect continua, and rookie Seema, fresh from academy, eyes still quicksilver with awe. They exchanged terse nods. Logistics loaded, Hale said. Incendiary suppression drones pre-tuned to 19th century atmospheric specs. Seema clutched her pack. First field deployment, but I'm tight on ordnance. Elowen recognized the flicker of nerves. Remember your anchor mantra, she told the rookie. We're not there to change history, only to keep it whole. They stepped onto a platform where servo arms sketched a door of light. With a collective breath, they entered. Heat smacked them. The sticky night of October 8, 1871. Wooden sidewalks creaked. Cows lowed in O'Leary's barn. Music drifted from a saloon down the block. The Chrono fracture shimmered closed, cold as ice against the warmth, leaving them in swirling smoke from a cooking fire. Telemetry? Elowen asked. Hale's scanner swept arcs. Unstable points to the north and inside the barn. Temporal anomalies minimal so far. Split, she ordered. Hale, flank east. Seema, with me. Cover the barn. They hustled across damp grass. The barn reeked of hay and livestock. Through a knothole, Elowen spied shadow figures clustering round a hanging lantern. One detached the metal globe. Another wrapped it in neutral cloth, careful not to spill lamp oil, because they needed the artifact intact. She signaled Sama. 2 target silhouettes, neutralized, non-lethal. They crept through the side door. Boards squealed, heads whipped toward them. 3 thieves, not 2. One was the manifest from Florence, cuffs evidently removed by outside agents. His grin bled malice. You again, he said. History's hall monitor. Elowen leveled her rifle. Drop the lantern. He hoisted it higher. Or what? Shoot me and risk shattering the glass? He was right. Chrono lock pulses would freeze the lantern, but also freeze him. The kinetic arrest might jar oil. A paradox either way. You underestimate our adaptability, she replied. Seema. The rookie flung a disc that burst into phosphorescent fog, an isochron field. Inside, only already recorded actions could unfold. No new decisions propagate. For smugglers not present in official history, the field became quicksand. They lunged sluggishly, words thick, limbs drag. Elowen darted forward, snatched the lantern, shoved it into a Chrono seal bag where time ran at 1 to 1,000,000. The manifest tried to follow, but Hale swooped from the rear, tagging him with a pulse that encased him mid-stride like amber. Seconds later, the fog faded. Elowen exhaled. Rangers 1, smugglers 0. They bound prisoners, but her display now flared crimson across multiple coordinates. Fires scrolled list. Peshtigo, Wisconsin. Port Huron, Michigan. The same night historically ravaged by flames. Slight deviations blossomed with magnitudes off charts. Global ignition drift, Hale read. Something's fueling synchronous conflagrations. Backup collectors, Elowen guessed. Lantern was misdirection. A squeal issued from the prisoner manifest, half frozen, but mouth free. You keep patching holes. We're tearing out the floorboards. It's already lost. Elowen felt herself pale. If they'd staged distractions, The real theft could be bigger. What anchors interface all those sites? Hale scanned. Meteor showers recorded that night. Biela's comet fragments. Old theories link them to the fires. Seema's eyes widened. If they're extracting fragments of the comet before they fall, no ignition events, Elowen finished. No acceleration of urban safety reforms. Ripple spreads continent-wide. She tapped HQ. Chief, confirm cosmic extraction threat. Udo answered grimly. Verified. We're tracking unauthorized beacons projecting outside Earth's gravity well. Year 1871. Launch origin unknown. Need chrono hop to stratosphere. Now. HQ patched coordinates. An aerial platform opened. A gateway glimpsing star-flecked night above the planet's curve. Elowen, Hale, and Seema leapt. Gravity inverts tugging at their stomachs until they stood weightless on an invisible scaffold woven of microfields. Above them, a sleek yacht blinked navigation lights. Anachronistic, smooth alloys not forged for another 5 centuries. Thrusters created only gentle ripples against 19th century air, easily mistaken for aurora by ground observers. It deployed nets, collecting glowing green stones, comet shrapnel burning away atmosphere. Chrono ecological rangers, Elowen hailed across broadband. Cease extraction and power down. A figure appeared on the yacht's edge. Calidora Yue, infamous temporal warlord. She wore a suit of shimmering variable hues, time-phasing armor. Ranger Varg, always seconds behind, Yue said, voice transmitted through the vacuum gap by quantum link. These meteorites are untethered artifacts. Removing them harms nothing. False. The fires catalyze critical reforms. Reforms? Yue shrugged. I sell options. Insurance conglomerates from alternate branches will pay trillions to reshape risk portfolios. People like you clutch dusty constants while markets evolve. Elowen felt fury and a twinge of admiration. Yue orchestrated chaos like a conductor. Last warning, Elowen said, raising her rifle. Yue gestured. Invisible forces slammed the Rangers, flinging them across the platform. Seema tumbled, but latched onto a support filament. Hale's suit sealed around a crack before decompressing. Elowen steadied. New plan, she muttered. Disable the ship. Hale pointed to magnetic couplers on the hull. If we attach loop grenades to those thrusters... Go, Elowen ordered. They vectored toward the yacht using personal boosters. Yue fired countermeasures, streamers of untime that aged anything they touched to rust. Seema narrowly dodged, her boot clipping a streamer. The metal corroded in seconds. She kicked it off. Elowen reached the first thruster. She slapped a loop grenade, set delay 3 seconds. Hale tackled the second. The yacht lurched, pilot AI altering course. Yue cursed, drew twin chrono blades that shimmered with flickering edges. She lunged at Elowen, blade humming through intervals. Elowen parried with her rifle's carbon stock. Sparks of raw moments scattered. If the blade nicked her, she might experience her entire life in an instant and burn out. Elowen ducked, letting Yue's momentum carry her forward, straight into the thruster as the first grenade detonated. A halo of silvery loops snapped shut around the engine. The ship's rear quarter became a statue of itself, time pinned. Yue recoiled, suit flickering. She launched upward, heading for the cockpit. Hale was already at the third thruster. The second grenade went off, locking half the yacht into freeze. Suddenly, the hull around Hale groaned. Time's shear threatened to fracture, scattering frozen shards hazardous as glass. He looked to Elowen. Get clear! She knew he'd never outrun the rupture. She could order him, but she saw peace settle in his eyes. Hale slapped the last grenade onto the central power core and smiled. The yacht erupted in a bloom of silent, brilliant chronal light, then imploded into a pearl of stillness, a zero-state singularity smaller than a coin. The blast shoved Elowen and Sima across the platform, suits buffering the shock. When vision steadied, only vacuum remained. The comet fragments, freed from nets, resumed descent, tracing fiery tails to the Midwest below. Hale was gone, a sacrifice to preserve the line. Sima sobbed softly over comms. Elowen put a hand on the rookie's shoulder. "Anchor mantra," she whispered. Together they recited, "We stand so others may have stood, will stand, and still stand." HQ reopened a gate. They stepped through into the hush of the operations deck. Monitors showed fires rekindling in Chicago, Peshtigo, Port Huron, history reinstated. Probabilistic stability climbed from orange to soft green. Udo met them. His eyes flicked to the empty space at their flank. "Hale?" "Paid with his thread," Elowen said. "We'll braid his name into the continuum quilt." It was the sole memorial the Rangers permitted themselves, a tapestry visible only from outside conventional time, embroidered with fallen Guardian signatures. They debriefed. The surviving smugglers, including Yue, were locked in paradox cells where each attempted escape generated counterloops. Assets seized. Yet Elowen knew the victory was partial. The commercial portals remained. Demand for banned artifacts kept rising. She stared at the holographic globe, sprouting pinpoint red warnings like measles. That night, she left the bustle of HQ for the Garden of Untaken Paths, a quiet atrium growing plants that never evolved on Earth, yet harmed no ecosystem because they were contained. There she met Sima, who gazed at luminous fronds. "Do you think it will ever end?" the rookie asked. Elowen thought of the yacht's shine, Hale's smile, centuries waiting to be born. "Time isn't a line or a circle," she said. "It's a wilderness. Some people litter and poach. Our job is the same as any ranger's. Patrol, protect, repeat." Sima nodded. "Sometimes I wish time travel had never been invented." "Wishes are soft. Resolve is steel. We keep walking." Footsteps echoed behind them. Chief Udo approached with 2 steaming mugs of synth coffee. He handed one to Elowen. "Field intel places a black market auction in 1920s Paris. They're calling the item the last laugh of Rabelais. We deploy at dawn." Elowen accepted the cup. "Good. I'm ready." Sima straightened, shoulders squaring beneath her still-creased uniform. "Me too." They stood beneath strange constellations that never existed, breathing air recycled through centuries. Somewhere in some age, a child would study a textbook still containing Michelangelo's David. Skyline architects would cite the Great Fire's reforms, and people would watch meteor showers, unknowing that their fall was defended by unseen guardians. Elowen raised her mug in silent toast to Hale, to all protectors whose labor left no signature but continuity itself. Then she turned toward the muster hall, where fresh portals shimmered like morning dew. Tomorrow, new fractures would yawn, new poachers would pry at history's seams, and the Rangers would follow, carrying teaspoons perhaps, yet shaping tides all the same.